Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Coptic class. In Coptic, we say Bechristos Aftonf, and then the response Chan Omathni Aftonf. So hope everyone had a good Easter and enjoyed the Easter and was able to celebrate it well and everything. So last time we didn't really have an assignment. We just did a review course because we're going to be slowing down the pace of the course a little bit for the duration of it. So I'm going to switch over to the assignments here, or to today's lesson. So if you don't see it, then please let me know. Let's see. Okay. So this is the 16th lesson out of the 31 lessons from the Coptic grammar book by Mawad Dawood. So, and again, so we're going to try to get through these, and I think the speed or pace, like I said, will be a little bit different. We're going to do the lesson 1 week, and then kind of just a general review the next week to help to kind of reinforce some of the concepts. So hopefully doing it that way has been helping, and hopefully as we're starting to learn more and more, everybody's paying more attention, like when you're saying or when there's hymns in Coptic in church or things like that, you're able to pay attention and see, oh, okay, I understand this and that, and able to see where, or basically to understand the language better, because we've gone through some of it. There's still is a fair amount left. Like I said, we're on lesson 16 out of approximately 31. And although there's not that many, I guess we're about halfway through the lessons. The first lesson's content was actually pretty light, I would say, even though it seems like it wasn't. The last 15 or so lessons, they kind of, since a lot of the tenses and conjugations, all that stuff tends to follow the same pattern, we're going to start going through some lessons where there's 5 or 6 different tenses in one chapter, for example. But by then, hopefully it's going to be easier because we already know the same patterns and the same concepts. We just have to know what the definition of that tense is, for example. Today's is not too bad, but that's just going to be kind of some upcoming things. So, and again, we'll be going through it. So if you have any questions from anything in the past, feel free to let us know, and we'll keep moving along. Okay, so let me switch over to the fancy Coptic tables here that we like to make, and we'll go through all this together. So like we always said, everything fits in our fancy 6-box table. So first we'll start off with what they're calling here the third conjugation. The first two are basically the ones where we talked about, like eroi, erok, erof, that one, and the emoi, emok, imuf, etc. And then the third one, it's basically it's the same concept, but it's this particle here that changes. So remember the ones with the particle, let me see if I typed it in here, with the and remember it tends to go with, verbs of the senses, verbs of motion, etc. Like for example, ti kati erok. So that means kati means to understand. So I understand to you, but it means I understand you. Okay? As opposed to, you wouldn't say ti kati emok, because this is using the particle may as the first particle. And likewise, you wouldn't see like what we're going to be studying today, ti kati nok. Okay? So most of the verbs, or most of these objects are going to be the one that has the may as the particle. The vast majority of them, and you probably recognize it, the one that starts with the may. The ones that are going to have the again, are typically, like they always refer to it as the verbs of the senses or the verbs of motion. And then there's going to be some, a few that we'll see all the time that have that start with the nay, and that's what we're going to be studying today. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back down here. And so we have our same boxes that we always use. The first person, second person, third person, then we've got the singular and the plural. So the first person singular, ni. Like, for example, in the psalm for Christmas, the liturgy, it says choice of gos ni. So choice of gos ni. So what does that mean? Choice, the Lord. Of, remember what tense it is? Think about it for a second before I give it away. Of is the simple past tense. Gos is a construct of go emos, so say it. But remember, when it's the feminine, it's kind of just a generic it. So the Lord, he said it to me. Eb choice of gos ni. The Lord, he said it to me, or the Lord said to me. So gos comes from go emos. And this is the transitive form of the verb, but it can be combined into the pre-pronominal form, I think is what it was called, where it's condensed down. So you can say choice of go emos ni or choice of gos ni. So it's just kind of a condensed form of it. So this is where the breakdown is. So, but anyway, we'll get to some of those different types of patterns later. That's going to be one of the busy lessons I was talking about. But the good thing is everything just fits into simple patterns. So once we get used to it, and really, repetition is going to be the key, and not so much repetition just with these lectures, but it's important even between lessons to kind of review on your own and try to read on your own, etc. So Ebshois Afgosni, the Lord, He said it to me. In second person, knock or ne. So again, this is the masculine. Remember, if you see the pattern again, remember we talked about it before. This ends with the iota, just like all the other first person things. This ends with a kappa. This ends with this invisible eh, that it's not really written because it blends in basically. And then a third person naf and nas, the plural first person non, the second person plural noten, and na'u. So you can play with this a little bit and see, like a choice of gos noten. So think about it, what does that mean? That means the Lord said to you, plural. Or a choice of gos naf. The Lord said to him. Or a choice of gos ne. The Lord said to you, female, etc. So we come across this a lot, especially when we're talking about speech. This verb means to say, or in some situations it can mean to sing. So we come across this a lot, especially in the church, in many of the church prayers and stuff. So that's the first thing that we wanted to review today. The second thing is basically nim with this kind of pronoun that follows. See, basically this pattern that we first talked about is using this n particle with the conjugations after it. Just like with the m particle or the I particle with the conjugations following it. In certain situations, we're going to have these same conjugation patterns, but instead of having those particles, we're going to use the word nim. And if you remember what nim means from earlier lessons, it means with. So let's go back to the table here, and we'll make another table. So it's pretty much the same suffix pronouns, me, but we're going to change, instead of just ni, it's going to be nim, e, nimak, nime, nimaf, nimas, nimam, moten. Can't type today, sorry. And nemo. So these portions are the same because remember these are the patterns. So once we get these patterns down, it becomes easy because then we need to only focus on what this one word means, and then we know. With me, with you feminine, with him, with her, with us, with you plural, with them. So let's practice how to say them. Nemi, nemak, neme. And again, same thing, that invisible E. Nemaf, nemas, neman, nemoten, and nemou. Like for example, like we'll see it in situations like Fki nemou. Okay, so F, simple present tense. Ki means, it comes from the verb kul, which means to put or place. This is the qualitative form. So ki, So that means F key. So that means this qualitative, we're going to get into this in more detail later, but qualitative means that this thing up here, which is the he, simple present tense, is in the has the quality of being put or placed. So what does that mean? So he is placed, or means he is present, basically, with ou, which is them. So he is with them. Like if you're looking for your friend or something, you ask somebody and he says, "If ki ne ma'u," that means he's with them. So that's how we use this, and it also has other uses too. But we'll see. We'll go through some examples, and really these things are very common things that will keep turning up over and over again. So that's why it's really important to kind of at least be exposed to some of these things, and then we're going to start to see lots and lots of uses with the repetition. So let's switch back over to the lesson here, and if there's any questions at any point, let us know. So here is good. We've got some examples here. Let me see if I can expand it a little bit. So moi ni. Moi is the imperative form of to give. You remember what to give is ti. Ni, remember we just talked about, it's the particle n with the conjugated suffix pronoun for first person singular me. So moi ni, give to me, with its imperative, so it's going to be like an exclamation point. And so just to kind of go off on one of the common tangents that we love to go on. So moi ni, and if it was not the imperative, you would say ti ni. So ti ni means give to me. And some people believe that this is where in Arabic, when you say idini, so let's just typing in English here, and they type it, change it to English, sorry. Some people believe that, idini is actually from the Coptic tini, because again, I don't really like to talk about the pronunciations again, because of all the people always fight about it, but teeny, they believe that it used to be in the past was the T was more like a D. So some people will say a dini. So they believe that's where this came from, that we use in Arabic all the time, a din. But anyway, so to see the difference between the ne particle and the other ones, I'm going to give you an example. So moi ni MP gom, for example. So moi ni MP gom. So let's say we're talking about pigom. So moi ni, you wouldn't say moi ni naf, right? Because this noun, because it's not one of because it starts with the may particle. So if you're going to use the pronoun form of it instead of the noun form of it, you're going to say moi ni emuf. So you can kind of see the differences. Let's go back to the table here and let's find another example. And actually, to go back into it, you would probably almost, this was just to give an example, but you'd probably see this as neef ni, and we'll go into this we'll go into these conjugations later, but the moi goes to the this pattern with this suffix. So neef, give it, talking about the The fee is masculine because this is masculine. So give him to me or give it to me. But anyway, I was just trying to show you an example of where this gets preserved when you're changing it from the full subject form to one of the pronoun forms. Let's switch back over. Okay, next example. Everybody knows this, hopefully. Sherenak and Sherene. Okay. So Sherenak, we know from especially from the verses of the symbols. Sherenak opi martiros, for example. Shere is a Greek word, means hail or greetings, or also means be happy. So Sherenak, so be happy, you, O martyr. It's always translated as hail, but in Coptic, Shere was often replaced with the verb rashi, which means to be happy or to be joyful. So Shere also means not just hail, but also to be happy or joyful. So be happy, O martyr, etc. So you can change this to any form, and this is how people were greeted too. You know, if you read like in the Bible, for example, and there's like a discussion going on, they would say Shere. That's their form of saying like hello. So there was not really like, you know, in English we say hello, how are you? They would say Shere knock. That's how you say hello too. So you're telling someone, you know, like be happy or hail to you, or so that's kind of the same way that they say hello. The other one was Sherene. So basically you're just gonna change this Sherene, second person, feminine singular. So hail to you, to a female. Okay. So it's pretty straightforward. This lesson is not too complex. Next example, tahirini ttemos noten. Okay. So it gets confusing because you've got two T's. And then you've got emos and you've got noten. So let's write this out over here. Tahirini. Oops, sorry. TT, emos, noten. Okay. So ta, remember it's the feminine possessive adjective, and it's feminine because hirini is Greek. Remember we talked about how Greek words tend to, although it's not a 100% rule, it's just a generalization. They tend to be feminine, and Coptic nouns tend to be masculine. So because this is Greek, hirini, meaning peace, so this has the feminine possessive adjective. So ta hirini, my peace, titi. So the first, you know, you have to try to figure out what does it mean. And we know because we always have the verb conjugation first, followed by the verb, right? So T, so that's the present tense, meaning I do something in the presently. And then the second T is the verb to give. So tahirini, my peace, I give. And what are you giving? We kind of talked about it a little bit above. TT, emos. So again, this emos, it's means I give her. Why is it her? Because what you're talking about giving is hirini, and it's feminine. So tahirini, TT, emos. So I'm giving her, or giving this hirini, giving this piece to you, plural, noten. If you wanted to see how it works in other ways, you can say something masculine. I keep going to the pigom example, but pigom, tt, immof, notan. Because now, or you can say pa if you want, pagom. So my book, I give him. And now it's masculine because the book is masculine. Okay, so that's how this, that's where this comes from. We can go a little further and we can go, you know, let's just say for example, something plural. Cash.
Hey Joe, we have a question whenever you're at a stopping point.
Oh, sure. Let me do this one and then I'll take the question. 1 second. So if you want to do it in plural, for example, tt, him. So think about it. What is it going to be now? Na, cash. Na it's plural, so it's not going to be immof or immos. It's not going to be immof. It's going to be ma'u, right? Because it's plural. My pencils, for this, you know, for the sake of being simple, my pencils, I give them to you. So, you know, it's kind of like dominoes is the best way to think of it. You know, this affects this. You know, the first domino hits the second domino, and that's how it goes. So, okay. Yeah, so what's the question?
I'm going to read it. It says, I am just wondering if the main or only difference between the first, second, and third conjugation object pronouns is based on the object particles emn. Are the emn related to the verb used or based on what we use emn?
It's related to the verb use. So that's exactly exactly right. So like we're kind of trying we were saying earlier. So you know, pretty much exactly like you said, it's related to the verb use. So the verbs of like the senses and some of the verbs of motion, etc., they will have the e particle with their, you know, their with the conjugations. Some of the verbs of like related to speech and some other ones which we'll get into. There's not too many of them. They'll use the ne that we just studied today, the ne particle, and then the bulk of them will use the me form. But yeah, that's exactly right. So that's the point I was trying to get across, but I probably didn't say it that good. But I think you said it a lot better in your question than I said it. But yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, okay, so that was that example. So you can see how this is this, okay? So here's another example of choice namak. So we can kind of put it over here and kind of change it around a little bit. A choice namak. So the Lord, remember we took this, nim means with, ek is what? It's going to be the second person, singular, masculine. So the Lord is with you, masculine. Choice namak. So some people say that as kind of a short way, like when we used to speak with our, you know, my friends and stuff in Coptic, we would all say choice namak, and it means the Lord be with you. You probably know from some of the hymns where we about St. Mary, where we say "Owo, eb choice, chop, nime." I'll put another line here. Owo, eb choice, chop, nime. So it's the same thing, but you know, chop means to be or to live or to dwell. So and the Lord, that's why we say the Lord is with you. So shop has different meanings. A shop can mean to buy or purchase something. It can mean to you know, to live or be. So it has a couple different meanings, but in this sense, obviously, it's not to purchase. So Choice shop nime. And you would know that, this is the present tense because basically if we're gonna, because remember we talked about if you have a verb, sometimes the subject takes the place of that pronoun. So it's easier to explain with the different tenses. So like, for example, choice na e. Okay, so the Lord will come again, for example. So choice, since we already have the subject, we don't need the pronoun, which would have been if na, it would have been if na e. So so this, we know it's the present tense because we have this verb here, but this is the future tense. It has the na, and we kind of went through some of these different examples. So when it doesn't have like one of these other indicators, then we know it's the present tense. So yeah, so we did choice pneumatic. The Lord is with you. Okay. So pretty simple concepts. Moshi nemaf. Moshi nemaf. So what does that mean, moshi? It's a pretty easy verb to remember. Moshi is like mashi or imshi, means to walk. Nim, f, walk with him. And again, you can change this to anything. Moshi nimou, moshi nimas, or moshi, like walk with us, moshi nimen. So again, it's pretty simple. And again, because we're just using the verb, we know that this is a command or an imperative, because we're just using this transitive form of the verb, which is just the unconjugated, unchanged form of the verb. So we know that it's the imperative form, moshi nemef. So that means you walk with him, and the you could be to male, female, or group. This doesn't say anything. So if you're talking to some guy, you would say moshi nemef. That means you're telling him walk with him. If you're talking to a female, you can say moshi nemef, and it's fine too. Or if you're talking to a group of people, male, female, mixed, whatever, doesn't matter, you say moshi nemef. It's just an imperative, like walk. Just saying walk with him. Let's see. The next one, amu nemi. So amu nemi. So amu, it's imperative form of come. So like it says here, come with me. So amu is an imperative of come. So the imperative, because it's a command form, it only exists in the second person. Just like when you're saying this command, it only, when you're doing a command, it only exists in the second person because it's you. You're giving somebody a command. So you're not like, commanding a him, for example. You're commanding you come here, or you come with him. Now this, now this is different because here we talked about this can be for he, or this could be for a you female, you male, or you group. But amu, it actually changes in those situations. Amu is for second person second person masculine singular, where second person masculine feminine would be ami, and the second person masculine, second person plural would be amoini. And you probably recognize these from various hymns. So amu nemi means come with me. Ami means you, female, come. So one famous example, we say it in every doxology of Ashe, we say ami evol chen pe kipos. So I always hear people saying ami evol chen pek ipos or something like that, but it's pe. This is the possessive adjective, the female, or the masculine possessive adjective conjugated in the second person feminine. So ami evol chen pek ipos, not ami evol chen pek ipos. So ami, because you're talking about Virgin Mary, so that's why this is the feminine one. So ami, so you, female. Ami, so you come, imperative or command form. Evol chen, from in. Pe, your. Kipos is a Greek word for garden. So just after I got through telling you that the vast majority of these Greek Greek nouns are feminine, we find one of the exceptions. Like I was saying, it's a general rule of thumb, but it's not 100% rule. So ami evol chen pe. So ami evol chen pe kipos. So anyway, just something that I always noticed that kind of people always say pek ipos, but it's pe kipos. Anyway, the other one we talked about amoini. I don't know what pops into my head is from the hymn. What's it called? Nichora. We say amoini, anav, tai, ishvir. Amoini. Amoini, again, it's the imperative form or the command form of you, plural. So you, plural, come. Anav. Nav is the verb to see. Nav. So this is kind of like an emphatic, again, an emphatic imperative. So it's kind of like just keeps putting exclamation points is the way you think of it. So you can say amoini. Generally, when you're saying that nav as an imperative, it's almost always has anav. But this can be used with other verbs too. So you would rarely see like amoini nav. You would almost always see anav. Anav, this imperative alpha is usually prefixed to it. Again, it's like you're putting an exclamation amoini here. I don't know if that's exclamation word. Amoini. And it's like you're putting nav is imperative, and then is imperative. So it's kind of like you're putting a double exclamation. So like someone was asking earlier, or someone was pointing out earlier in the question, which was a good one. So because nav is a verb of the senses, a verb of your eyes, the sense to see. So it's going to have the particle. And then ishviri means a miracle or wonder, again, because it's the hymn of Nichoros. It's talking about the changing of the water into wine at the wedding of King of Galilee. So come and see this miracle or this wonder. So amoini, come, look, to or towards this, tai, ishviri. Come and look to or towards this wonder. So, again, somebody when they were asking earlier. So if you didn't, for whatever reason, you were not going to say tai ishviri, you're going to say come and look at it. You would say amoini anav eros. because this verb, like you were pointing out earlier, was this verb of the senses. So we're going to use this I particle, or instead of using the I particle with the full subject noun, and you want to use the pronoun form of it, you're going to use eros. So you wouldn't say amoini anav immus. No, that would be wrong. Or you're not going to say amoini anav nas. That would be wrong. So hopefully with these examples, it's kind of making a little bit more sense. And especially when we more and more examples we go through and see and try to explain, I think it'll be clearer and clearer. Really, it's just kind of I try to tell people not to get too bogged down in the details right now, because really the key is really just to kind of be exposed to these things, and then once we start seeing them actually used over and over again when we go through different things that we want to translate together, then it's really going to start to click. So really we just want to kind of be exposed and see the concepts right now. And then the more exposure, we're going to learn a lot more. So amu, ami, amoini. Those are the imperatives. You know, the other places in the hymn also men. Amoini nilaos tiro enten ooshtin isus bechristos. So amoini. So again, it's you plural. Amoini nilaos tiro enten oosht en isos bechristos. Okay, so amoini, you plural, nilaos. So it's plural because who are you telling to amoini? Who are you telling to come? Nilaos. So this is plural. Nilaos. Laos is a Greek word for a peoples, or like a nation, kind of like a like a people, like the Egyptian people or something. It's not just people, but it's just kind of like almost like a certain group that's together for some reason, like the Egyptian people or the Hebrew people or whatever. That's when it's kind of sort of used. So this is plural because this is plural. Make sense? And then tiro, we're going to go into these conjugations too, but tir means all, and then these things change as we talk, as you know, with depending on the what we're talking about. So this is the part that changes the pronouns depending on what this is. So amoini nilaos tiro, come the people, all of them. So come all you people, or come all you nations, depending on how they translate it or whatever. Enten oosht, that means that we may worship Jesus Christ. And again, we'll go into these examples later. Oosht is the verb meaning to worship. And again, you can see here, like we were talking about earlier, enten oosht and isos bechristos. Okay, so because oosht is one of the verbs that has the ne, so you wouldn't enten oosht isos bechristos. No, that would be wrong. It's not one of the verbs of the senses, and it's not one of the majority of verbs that would have the isos bechristos. Well, I mean, well, this one's a little tricky, so let's not go into that. But it wouldn't have the e. Okay, so let's just leave it at that for now, because it's not one of the verbs of the senses. Okay, and we'll leave it at that for now, because that one's a little bit tricky. But we'll see that later, just to avoid too much confusion. Okay. All right, so let's go back and see. I think that was the last example here, maybe. Oh, so I have a little bit more. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna speed up a little bit. Sorry. didn't realize we have this much more to go. Okay, okay. So the verb to go. So the verb to go is شه. So like in the one of the examples that we'll probably hear every communion today, we'd say Av Shenaf in the hymn of Katani Horus. Av Shenaf. Yeah. So she means to go. This is one of those ones where it's reflexive. So remember we talked about reflexive things, like for example, af tonf. Ton means to raise. This is the past tense. He raised, but again, it's not he raised himself, but it's just reflexive, which means this verb gets conjugated as a reflex of this. I mean, you could think of it, the easiest way to think of that reflexive concept is if, for those of you who know Arabic especially, like if you say, I'm going to type in English here, but you can say like Gib, like Gib el-Kitab, or Gibi el-Kitab, or Gibu, so basically this is, it's just kind of, it reflexively changes on what you're talking about. It doesn't mean anything more than that, really. So I don't know, that wasn't the best example, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. But anyway, so we'll get out our table again, and then I'll show you. Let's see. So in his examples, he used the past. He used the past tense, but it doesn't matter because the tense can be anything. So we can do some examples here. So I mean, you can say, like for example, he said I sheni, so he's using the past tense. So that means I in the past tense. So we'd say went in English. I went, and again, this is reflexive. So this suffix corresponds to this verb conjugation pattern. So what's this one going to be? Because shinak, so it's going to be ak shinak. What's this going to be? Are shene. Af shinaf. As shinas. And shinan. Aretain shinotain. And then of shinau. But it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be past tense. He just used it as an example. So let's say I was walking, the past continuous. That's fine, as long as this tense corresponds to this conjugation. You can say the habitual, shak shinak, like you habitually go to do blah, blah, blah. You can say the future. Te, ra, shine. Remember, with the feminine, this is the only exception where this is not na, but it's ra for the second person feminine. So te ra shine, that means you will go. That's speaking to a female, etc. So this stays. I mean, the she means to go. This is just reflexively there, and it doesn't. The prefix doesn't matter. So. It just tells you the tense. And then the imperative. So remember we talked about the imperative. It's pretty much only going to be in the second person. Second person singular, masculine, second person singular feminine, or the plural. So the imperative, it's Shinak, Shine, Shinoten. But it's always prefixed with ma Shinak. Like for I'm trying to think, it's the exposition. I think it was Palm Sunday, if I remember correctly, off the top of my head. Mashinak, there's that hymn we always say. Mashinak. It's the imperative of to go. So you go, male, or you go, female, or you go, group of people. So that's the imperative. And again, we'll come across this pretty regularly, so you'll see it. It'll become very familiar with you, or for you. And then, let's see, we've got a few minutes left. So this can be our homework assignment. I know we haven't had homework for I think the last 2 lessons, so we can do these as translation and answer the following questions. So let me do the first one together with you, and then we can turn them all in. So, Mi ekush eshinak nemi eti ekleseya. So it's got all the stuff we learned today. Mi ekush, I'm sorry. Ekush eshinak nemi eti ekleseya. Let's see, was it? Make sure it's right. Mi ekush eshinak nemi eti ekleseya. Okay. So me, question. Ik uush. So what is uush? So don't be confused by it and think that this is a indefinite article, because I remember that some people had a lot of problems with that in the first semester, is they would see this verb and say uush meaning a lesson, but this is actually a verb, because you can't have this simple present tense conjugation here and then have an indefinite article. It doesn't make any sense at all. So you have this simple present tense marker here. So this is a verb. It's not going to be an indefinite article and a noun. This is just one word. It's a verb. So you don't just want to see letters and just assume things. You need to figure it out. So mi ek uush. So this is the second person masculine singular present tense. And remember, it's a key instead of the kappa, because this verb starts with an O, which is the bil manur group. So that's why it's ek uush instead of ek uush with a kappa. So see, we're gonna, I'm just trying to reinforce these things to remind you guys. So mi ek uush. Whoosh is an easy way to remember is uush is almost like wish, so it means to wish or want. So mi ek uush e. And again, uush is always going to be have the e particle. Some of these verbs that we see all the time, you're going to get used to this. What it goes with. Shinak, again, it's a reflexive to go. Mi ek uush shinak. So, do you wish to go? Nim who? Nim means with, and who is it's e. So nimin. Do you wish to go with me? And again, because we're talking about the direction, e means to or towards. So, do you wish to go with me to or towards ti ekklesia, the church? So that's how you would translate it. And then answer the following questions. So you can answer it, just alternate, one affirmative, one negative. It doesn't matter. I just want you to be able to translate it and be able to kind of formulate a proper sentence, whether it's affirmative or negative after is fine. So these 7 questions, that'll be our homework assignment for next time, because I know we haven't had any for a couple months. And and then I guess we're pretty much done with the lesson. So if there's any final questions or anything, I went a little bit slow today, so hopefully that's helping, and try to explain a little bit more. And we didn't have time to go through and do our usual translations of stuff. I pulled this up just in case, but don't worry, we're gonna do that next lesson. We'll spend the whole time basically kind of reviewing and going over the homework, and then just going through some translation exercises. So if there's any questions, please send them in. I'm just going to kind of scroll up here to our prayer, and then we can conclude. Okay, so we'll conclude. خنفران بفيوت نم بشيري نم ببنم ثواب ونوت ينوت أمين نجيب نيوت اتخني في قوي معرف توف ونجيب كران مارس انجتك متقورو بيت هناك معرف شوبي اما فريتي خنت فه نم هيجن بيكاهي بين اويك انتراستي ميف نانم فو او كان يتيرون نان ايفول اما فريتي هون انتنكو ايفول اني اتا ووننتان ارو اوه امبرنتن اخونا بيرازموس الله نحمن ايفول حبيبت هو فان بخريستوس إيسوس بن شويس جاثوك تاتي متقورو ننتي قوم ننبياو شانن تنينه تيرو امين خنفران مفيوت نمبشيري نمبنم ثواب ونوتي نوت امين. Okay, everybody have a good night, and b'Christos Avton, and we'll see you next lesson.